Hello everyone, welcome to Bonnie Caroline Makes Cards. I have a couple of cards that were created using a positive-negative color design technique featuring Spellbinders Cinch and Go blossoms and romantic slimline borders. If you are interested in any of the products used to make these cards, you will find links in the description of this YouTube video or on my blog at bonniecarolee.com. These slimline cards are colorful and fun to create, so let's get started. Romantic Slimline Borders is a set of 6 dies. There are 4 different styles of borders. 2 of them come with separate border edge dies for greater versatility. For these cards, I'm using all of the dies to create 3 different borders that can be layered. The overall card size is going to be 3 3/4 inches by 8 3/4 inches. These layering panels will be trimmed down as they are assembled. The set that will remain white was die cut from Neenah Classic Crest 110 pound cardstock. The other set that will be ink blended was die cut from Bristol Smooth cardstock. I'm working with Distress Oxide inks, Faded Jeans, Villainous Potion, and Picked Raspberry. The first thing that I'm going to do is just ink up each of those lacy edges with one of each of the colors. This last panel is the top layer. I'm going to use some post-it note tape, mask off the border, and ink it in the Picked Raspberry. The rest of the panel will be ink blended. I need to wait for the border to dry before I can reuse the mask. It will not adhere to the ink until it is dry. The border is masked off and an ink blended background is created with the 3 colors that were used for the border edges. The ink is applied several times, overlapping one color with the other until there is a nice smooth blend. While the inks are out, I'm going to be inking up several scrap pieces of Bristol Smooth cardstock that will be used to die cut both the flowers and the sentiment. These die cuts will be used on the card with the white background. Because these 2 cards together will create a positive-negative color design, everything that I do on one card will be done in the opposite way on the other card. So I'm creating another ink blend so that it looks like these letters have been die cut from the ink blended background. Before this layered background is assembled, foam is going to be applied to both the top and middle layer. The base layer will be adhered to soft navy cardstock for the white card and white cardstock for the ink blended one. The 2 layers are adhered to the base. These stacked panels are set aside to dry completely under some weight so that there's good contact between the cardstock and the foam. I wanted a big, bold sentiment for these cards, and so I'm using the letter dies that come with Spellbinders Stitched Thanks. I love incorporating dimension in my cards. It makes everything stand out. The letters have been die cut from the cardstock and foam and stacked. With the 2 foam mounted layers, the sentiment, and then the flowers, there is a lot of dimension in this card. However, the sheet foam that I'm using has probably half the dimension that foam tape has, so it's not completely over the top. The detail die in Stitch Thanks is going to be used to space out those letters in the sentiment. The bottom of the letter openings on the die have been lined up with the dot detail on the top border. The letters are adhered to the center of the opening. The flower layers from Cinch and Go blossoms have been die cut from white cardstock for the ink blended card. The flower center details are die cut from cardstock that has been inked with Villainous Potion. I'm using a ball tool and a molding mat from McGill Paper Blossoms to do some simple shaping. The ball tool is used to make some round circular motions on the back of each of the flower petals. The flowers are flipped over and the centers are depressed. A smaller ball tool is pressed down on the tips of each of the petals, making them pop up and crinkle a little bit. These are very simple, easy shaping techniques. And now the layers of this flower are going to be put together with a little bit of liquid adhesive. As each layer is put on, the petals are offset. There's a small die cut hole and I use my craft pick to make sure that those layers are all centered. Stamens for this flower go onto the molding mat and are depressed with the ball tool and then adhered to the center of the flower. And the center of the flower is depressed one more time and it's complete. Before the flowers are attached, the card base is going to be adhered to a card base of Neenah Classic Crest 110 pound cardstock. The dimensions are the same as the background, 3 3/4 inches by 8 3/4 inches. Before the background had been attached to the card base, I had arranged the flowers. I laid them out on my craft mat, grouping them in the same way that they would go onto the card. Of course, there's still a little bit of fussing as I work the flowers in and around the letters. For this first card, getting everything arranged did take some time. But adhering the flowers to the second card would take no time at all. I would just copy exactly what I've done with this one. Finally, I'm happy with the arrangement and I'm ready to start adhering these flowers. Because the flowers are dimensional, adhesive is placed just in the center of the flower. And as you can see, I'm still fussing with the arrangement as I adhere them. For the second card, the inked petal layers were shaped, assembled, and adhered directly to the card as soon as they were built. Continuing with that positive-negative color design, the center for these flowers will be white, whereas in the previous card they were inked. This card came together very quickly. I just simply copied exactly what I had done in the previous one. The flowers were finished off with some beautiful iridescent confetti. Using the smallest size of confetti, a few embellishments were added around the blossoms and sentiment. They were all topped up with Nouveau Crystal Drops Morning Dew, giving them a jewel-like appearance. And that wraps up this pair of cards featuring Spellbinders Romantic Slimline Borders and Cinch and Go Blossoms. I hope you enjoyed this video using positive and negative color design to create 2 cards. Thank you for stopping by, and as always, I appreciate your visit.